Hey everybody, welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk. This week we dive into all things spirit once again. Specifically, we talk about going inside and how to really nurture yourself when things feel a little hectic, and how to reclaim your energy and recharge. And all three of us bring through such insight and words from spirit. We pull some cards. So grab your cup of coffee, and I hope you enjoy this week's version of Spirit Coffee Talk. Hello everybody, welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk. This week we are the mediums and channelers of Avalon Spirit. Joining me, I'm Lisa Richmond. Joining me today is Elyse Cathray and Ginette Byro. We meet every Friday for Spirit Coffee Talk, where we talk everything spiritual, woo, what's going on collectively, individually for the week. So welcome to this week's Spirit Coffee Talk.
All right, thanks
Yeah.
for that. So, ladies, I think we have some interesting things to talk about because I think everybody watching this is going to totally nod their head in a big heck yeah to the craziness that's happening in the world and how it's causing an even greater amplification of the fear narrative that we've talked about, and how we said a lot was going to be squeezing down the pipe, pushing into September, which would force us to make changes and choices, right? And how, if we're not careful, we will get caught in the whirlpool of that fear narrative and it'll take us over. And so some of the idea that we were talking about was the willingness to step back and step out of it right now, right?
Which I want to acknowledge is hard. I think we're going to talk a lot about it, but I want to put the caveat of we're not talking about it from the perspective of like, it's easy, just disconnect from, pardon my language, but the shit show of the world is what it feels like right now. And so, with everything I think that we're going to talk about, and I mean, obviously we always kind of just see what comes, but like remembering to be gentle with yourself about it. Because even last night I was telling these ladies that I was in like an anxiety spiral and I was lying in bed, like just mulling over every single thing that was going on. And so just because we talk and, share about these are the recommendations, it's not to say that it's easy. It's a continual practice for everybody. And some days are going to be a lot harder than others. And yeah, so just to put that caveat, let's still be gentle with ourselves if it's not an easy process.
I agree.
And I think that's kind of the theme of at least what I'm committing to myself, or going to really try to commit to myself for this week, is taking a step back and being more gentle with myself. So I've kind of referred to it as creating a little cocoon for myself, from not like sticking my head in the sand pretending that nothing is existing, but like taking a step back on the things that I can control. Like, I'm choosing not to get caught up in the narrative on social media. I have zero interest in looking at the comments after somebody's post, or like that's where the whirlwind for me personally lies. And I mean, I think that it's our human right to be able to have an opinion about everything, but there's a difference between feeling like you have to fight against everything all the time. And I think it's almost come into like that is the norm on social media, or that is the norm within opinions, is having to fight against other opinions. When I think that for me personally, taking a step back from fighting against anything and just existing in what my perception of truth is right now is just the light. I was saying it's the light, because only truth can come from this divine light. And so instead of looking at the collective perspective of things, I'm choosing to come into myself and almost have like a rebirth on this. It's like, I want a cocoon, come in and start manifesting for myself what I want this rebirth to look like. So I think my understanding from spirit this last week and my downloads and my connections with my guides was very much like that. Choose to step back a bit and use this beautiful energy that is available to us from the light, not from the collective human experience, but from the light and the energy of the equinox, the rebirth, I suppose is how they can describe it, and start manifesting exactly what you want. And that can be what we want in this next year. It can be how we want to feel, what we want to bring forward in our life, with connections and love and communication, and just it's time to manifest, and like sky's the limit, creating this beautiful light. And so I think that instead of engaging in the collective fight, which is everywhere, there's a big invitation right now to kind of come back, cozy up, cocoon a little bit, and come into yourself to see what do you want to manifest, right? Write it down. You can go into meditation, you can have baths, but like make it a journey into self. That's what I've pulled forward this week for sure.
I think that's
great.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say, just an understanding that I was kind of reminded of right now is that I think we've forgotten, and I've definitely been guilty of this too, the last couple of years with everything that's been going on in the world, not just COVID, but everything. It's like we've almost forgotten that life is still moving forward, right? It feels like we're kind of in this weird zone of no time where last year was 2019 still in my brain in a lot of ways. And we almost forget that like we're still getting up every day. We're still doing work, going to our jobs. We're still, buying groceries and eating food and interacting with people. Life is still moving forward. It's not like we're in this no time zone, even though it feels like that sometimes, where it doesn't matter what our choices are. It doesn't matter how we're engaging. The choices that we're making day in and day out, even though it feels like we're stuck in this weird Groundhog Day, we are still making choices every day that create our future. And so we have to remember that this isn't going to last forever. COVID is not going to be, maybe there will be just like the flu, COVID will be around. I don't know, but it's not going to be the way it is. We're not going to always be going into lockdowns and having these conversations and not being able to see our family and friends in the same way, or whatever is happening. That's going to change. And we're going to come out of this proverbial tunnel that we're in and be like, oh crap, 3 years or 4 years or 2 years or however long has passed. What was I focusing on? What were the choices that I was making? Was I actively still creating the life that I want once I come out of this tunnel that we just don't know how long it's going to last? And I feel like there's been a real disconnect around that because collectively we kind of feel like time isn't moving, but it is. And so it's not to panic people, but just to say, like, as you were saying, Lisa, reconnect into what is it that you want in your life now? And what is it that you want to see your life and the collective, the world look like? We can manifest and create. For some people, manifest can be a triggering word or seem airy-fairy. So it's like we can create a life that we want for ourselves, but we can also facilitate that for the greater good, right? And create a world that we feel is loving and kind and safe and supportive for everyone. And yeah, I think we just kind of have lost sight of that because of the muck, which makes sense, but now might be the time to shift out of that perspective and keep taking the steps forward that we need to and that we want to.
Yeah.
One of the things, there's two things actually. One of them is a message from spirit and one is a thought from me. And the first one, my thought is, I remember speaking to what you're saying about like this won't last forever, is I remember being a new mom and, trying to handle the sudden change of lifestyle, taking care of a small baby, then you add another one. Like, that's a huge paradigm shift, which can also sort of compare to the idea of a paradigm shift humanity is going through right now. And I remember a friend told me, she said, remember that everything is a phase. Everything through parenting is a phase. If your kid's going through colic, it's a phase. If your child is going through temper tantrums, it's a phase. Like, not getting stuck, like you said in the feeling that it's permanent, right? Like, this too shall pass. That same phrase is really helpful because I remember through some of the really challenging times of having little kids around and toddlers was the idea of this too shall pass. This is a phase. And it would just kind of allow you to step back, because then this leads into what my guides were showing me as you guys are talking, is to kind of, I'm going to see if I can explain this properly because they gave it to me in visuals. Humanity right now is like sitting in a giant hot tub jacuzzi, okay? And you've got all kinds of people in the jacuzzi, but it's a really big one. And it's been hot and bubbling for a while, right? And some people want to get into that jacuzzi because they want to get into the heat and like be in there. But what's happened now is it's starting to do this really big whirl, right? It's really hot, it's getting hotter, it's doing this whirl, it's actually creating this like funnel that's like sucking everything in and sucking people in a way. And they're saying what you have to remember is that this whirl is going to suck in everything that needs to be pulled down and out and in a way sent down the drain, right? Perspectives, paradigms, ideas, old outdated constructs, all of that. And it's going to be really hot. But just like a jacuzzi or a hot tub, you have the ability to step out and sit on the side, right? Like just when you're sitting in a hot tub, when you get too hot, you sit back. It doesn't mean you get out of the hot tub and you turn around and never look at it again, and you can sit on the edge with just your feet in, but you're safely sitting on the edge. And so they're saying right now, for those that are like, but I need to know what's going on, I need to be up to date, I need to know this and this, they're saying, just get out from being in the water up to here to allow your own body to cool off. Allow yourself to come down to homeostasis, to balance, to comfort, to calm. And you can do that by stepping out of the whirlpool, right? Without losing touch of everything that's happening. So they said to kind of visualize it like that in one sense, because I think some people take it really far of being like, well, I need to know what's going on. So they stay stuck in the stress energy and they're like, oh, I just need to like shut it out completely. And it's not one or the other. Right. There's a way to kind of embody the two, which is just like keep your toes in if you need to be into the insights. But save your body first. Save your sanity, your sense of self, your emotions, your mental capacity, and sit on the edge. Yeah.
I'm more of a like way on the sidelines type of person. I don't even need my toes in, but yeah, no, I totally see that. I get that for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, a lot of us are really unconscious of the fact that that desire to read all the things, learn all the things, go into the comment section, like just really deep dive into the muck is in a sense like a physiological stress response, because we've been so primed to feel stressed out that the body's like, hey, well, let's get in there and get more of that, because that's what we do. We're stressed. We're in a trauma response. This has just been a colossal traumatic experience. And not just COVID, but then there's been a ton of other things that have also been a traumatic experience for many people. And so it's like we are perpetually being primed for that right now. You turn on any show, you turn on the news, like even fluffy TV shows, they kind of had to because people had to wear masks and things, but like, Grey's Anatomy, the whole last season was about COVID. So even when you're trying to disconnect and like watch something light and fluffy that brings you joy, you're being reminded of it. And so it's not to be hard on ourselves for shutting everything out and completely freezing or fleeing. But it's also, not to be hard on ourselves when we find ourselves in the muck. I was doing that last night. I was reading the comment section. All you have to do is not crap on yourself for it, but just be aware of like, okay, I'm going into a deep dive here. I'm getting too hot in the hot tub. Take a breath, let your nervous system kind of slow down a little bit, and then step out of the hot tub or step on the side and say, you know what, I'm going to put my phone away right now. I'm going to read a book that's actually uplifting. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to go for a walk, whatever it is. Those baby steps, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, because that in and of itself will cause you stress, right? Sticking your head in the sand and not knowing what's happening around you is also stressful and will make you feel unsafe. So it's gently finding that balance and being kind to ourselves about our body is just trying to, and our brains are just trying to protect ourselves, but we're not always doing that in the most effective way. And it can perpetuate the shitty feelings that we have, basically.
Yeah. And I think it's really, like Lisa said, like for her, she wants to be like way on the sidelines, right? And
Totally.
that's
I'm more of a Disney movie person because like I can't even watch movies or shows that are intense at all.
mhm,
And maybe it's because like my nervous system got to a certain place and and I'm like, mm-mm. I
mhm,
hang out with the kids because the kids' perspective is like what's right in front of them.
mhm,
Like forts and movie nights and like trampolines and Play-Doh, and it's like that is comfortable for me right now. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I have that in my life because that does guide then my reality because
mhm,
that's what I'm choosing for my
mhm.
reality. My
Yeah.
reality is that in the perspective of littles, right? Because that's like a conscious choice I'm making because
Yeah.
I know as soon as I take one step, I'm like, it hurts. Like I feel extra emotional with it. I feel so completely emotional when I get encased in the energy of anger, and that's my personal experience with it. So I hang out with spirit and kids.
Mhm,
That's it for me right now.
mhm,
That's all I can do. It's like I love spirit. I love doing the readings for people and connecting to the higher realms, doing my cards and my crystals. And like that is so much joy for me. And then I can go and I can watch Frozen too. And it warms my heart. You know what I mean?
mhm,
That's my reality. I'm not saying that's what everybody needs to do, but it was like my connection with spirit this week was yes, Lisa, nurture and say, how do I want to feel? I want to feel that nurturing. I want to feel that sense of um, wonder and childlike awe and the warmth of spirit. That's what I want. So, how can I make my choices during the week that align with that? So, if all of a sudden I'm reading comments on Facebook about something, um, I say, is this aligning with the energy that I want?
mhm.
Clearly not. So, like it's like coming back to that point, that reference point.
Yeah.
Does this align with the energy that I want right now or that I need or that aligns with me right now? Does this align with that? Does that? No? Okay. Put it
Mhm,
away, and being able to have those boundaries, even with conversation with people, being like, I'm not I'm not up for this conversation right now because it doesn't align at all with the energy that I want to carry with me. So like I love you or I respect you, but like I'm not able to take part in this conversation right now.
mhm.
That's tough. That can be tough, right?
It's definitely hard. I think there's something to be said too for like we're talking about our experiences in which we're really energy sensitive and our draw right now is to pull back to various degrees. But there are people too, though, and I really want to put this caveat out too that there are people who their role and purpose right now is to be in the muck and is to be raising their voice and is to be standing up and being those people that are like, this is how we're going to change it. This is the idea. Let's implement it. So, like, they're meant to be whirling around in the hot tub, but their energy is such that they're whirling around in that whirl, but they've got floaties on and they're good, right? Like that's part of their purpose. And so I guess it's to really like check with yourself. You just like, if your family, for example, I'll use families for, or your neighborhood, whatever. If your family is one of, we need to go in there and make a change, but you don't feel that for yourself, you have to honor self. And that's the biggest thing that Spirit's trying to bring through is like, whatever your position is, if it brings you peace of mind, it helps you feel aligned, then you act according to that. And you know you will be acting in your alignment, even if your alignment opposes that of your family or opposes that of your neighborhood, community, whatever. Like, you know your role kind of thing. So
I
follow
love
what that
that.
role is.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I think that's a great point, and it brought up kind of a further point for me around, you know, there are people, whether you're talking about COVID or some of the, cultural things we're seeing, some of the, oh gosh, the word is leaving my brain right now, but um, discriminatory things that we're seeing come up in the world and those types of challenges and unlearnings. There are large groups of people that are not able to disconnect, right? When you talk about minorities, when you talk about people whose rights are taken away or challenged, when you talk about healthcare workers who have been in this mud storm, to put it very nicely, for the last 2 years, right? And like when we look at Alberta's medical system is collapsing. Like There's no avoiding it at this point.
Yeah.
They have nothing else to give. Like they are just, and I'm like, my heart just feels for them. And I think where we can, for those of us who are in a privileged position where we're not a healthcare worker in the muck, or we are not, you know, a person who is discriminated against or a minority, when we are disconnecting and holding our own space, we then can show up and hold space for others when they need it, right? We can be that ear for somebody when you have a loved one who is a healthcare worker who is like on the verge of breakdown because they can't remove themselves from it because they are in it every day, right? That's how they make their living.
Yeah.
We can then play that role to say, okay, you know what? I'm not in it. I'm able to step back and take care of myself. How can I support you? How can I hold space for you? What do you need from me? Can I make you meals for your family or whatever it is? It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be anything, you know, major. It can just be call me when you need an ear to vent because I'm holding my own space. I can do that for you too. I think collective support of one another is something that we're seeing less of because there is so much charge. And yet now is the time where we need to be doing it the most. So if you are in a place where you can disconnect and care for yourself and go inward and nurture, be sure to ripple that out into your community. Support those that maybe can't do that because we need to be there to support one another right now. It's just, we can't go through it completely alone.
Yeah. Do you guys want to pull cards? I just keep seeing cards flashing in my head. Do you guys want to pull cards? Or Lisa, do you have yours out?
Well, yeah, because I pulled cards before we started, but that's kind of essentially what I was talking about because I connected with Spirit obviously before we started. And they showed me just the infinite manifestation in third eye, which is like the rebirth, creating exactly what you want and being very creative with your manifestations, like, you know, infinite possibilities is what I talked about first, but I can pull more if you want.
Yeah, maybe one more.
Respect to
What we're saying or spirit's advice or something like that, because I was seeing, you know, when you see a deck of playing cards, you see this in movies where like the cards just go like, and they're everywhere. They were showing me that in my mind. So I was like, okay, there's something to come out in the cards.
Okay, so this one just jumped. So it's reclaim your energy.
Okay, beautiful confirmation of what we're talking about. Yeah.
And this is, okay, so they're giving me specifics about this. So reclaiming your energy in whichever form that resonates with you and yourself, right? Like we were saying before, it can look differently, but like taking a step back can be about the recharge, right? Just like, okay, if you have a cell phone and you use it all day and it's giving you information and blah, blah, blah. And if it's dead, it's not going to give you any more information. It's not going to call anybody and it's not going to be of any use. So you need to go find a power outlet, plug it in and give it a sec, right? And this is kind of about reclaiming your energy as a whole. And it's not about not caring anymore or not being involved. But like Elyse was saying, you can make more ripple effects and align to your greatest good and what you really want by reclaiming your energy and taking that step back to maybe acknowledge, what is it in my energy that I want to reclaim? Have I gotten off track a bit? Have I gotten outside of my my trueness, you know? So reclaiming that, and that is kind of like recharging your batteries too.
I want to say too, as you were talking about that, my guides are showing me stones and crystals. And Lisa, you'd mentioned this to me this week too, so it's neat that they reminded me. Was right now, with all the energy going on in the world and stuff, you can even like add one of these to your person for the day. When you go out, if you can, if you have a stone, because stones, remember, are amplifiers. And truly, in this case, it doesn't matter which stone you use. Find one that resonates. It may change every day. It can be like so many different kinds, styles. Like, look at all these, right? Like, there's so many. But if you can have one, or even like bracelets, right? Keep it on your person, whether it's in your pocket, your purse. Ladies, sometimes it
Your
just goes
bra.
right in the bra, fits right there.
Always.
Yeah, it helps amplify your intention of your energy. So when you're reclaiming your energy, if your energy is like, listen, I've got to go to Costco, I've got to do this, I've got to run around, it's going to be a busy day, I feel overwhelmed, but I'm going to take a moment to set an intention, and this is going to be my amplifier to like lock it in place, keep it with me, to just stay in my calm, keep it on your person. So they're saying use amplifiers. These are energetic amplifiers to help with the intent that you're setting for you,
Love that.
your person.
Very cool.
Funny story about that. One time I had a bunch of crystals in my bra, and then I went to physio and I bent over and they like on the floor, and I was like, oh, sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
Look at my energy, it's fine.
Oh, that's funny.
Don't mind me.
Aw. Well, I think that's quite lovely. For today, do you guys have anything else that's come through at all?
I think the one thing that's kind of been rippling in my head, and I know it's come through in a few things that I've said, and I've seen it in a lot of criticisms, but also in a lot of kind of on, I guess, both sides of the spectrum is what I'm trying to say, is that through all of this, there's been this kind of back and forth of individual needs and desires compared to collective needs and desires. And I think the understanding that I'm getting is that we have to learn to balance both. And we can't always be solely in what we want and, kind of tunnel vision around what's best for us, because we also have to exist in a society that, both benefits and challenges us. And like, it's this whole ecosystem, right? And we can't just be on our own, but we also can't only think of everybody else either, because then our own well-being suffers. And so there has to be this, and I think this is something that we're seeing, and I'm seeing anyways, being kind of played out and challenged, is this idea that it's one or the other. And we're forgetting that it can be both. And I know I think we've talked about this on Spirit Coffee Talk, but it's been something that I've talked with a lot of people about, is like, when it's one or the other, we're still on the same spectrum. How do we come up to a different perspective? How do we come up to a different spectrum of both and all? And not to say we have to do all or everything, but that we can hold both. We can hold, supporting in what's best for the collective and envisioning what we desire this world to look like. And what, if I could create a world with the swipe of my hand, what would that look like? It would be loving and safe for everybody, and we would have health, and there would just be so many different things. And what do I desire for myself? And really holding both of those things and not getting trapped in the one or the other. And that's going to look different for everybody. So not to say that, one way is the only way, but it's just remembering that duality, we are individual people, but we also exist in community. And so how can we hold the energies of both? And that's going to be very individual, and that's going to look different for every person. But that is very nourishing. And I think ultimately where I see we need to move off of this spectrum of like one or the other, me versus you, everybody else versus what I want, like that back and forth. It's just not going to, COVID or not, world stuff or not, that kind of paradigm isn't going to support us going forward, no matter what the issues of the world are. So how can we start to shift our own personal thinking in that and kind of hold space for both? And it's hard. It's not an easy thing, but
yeah, I think that's beautiful. How about you, Lisa?
Yeah, when I look at the reclaiming of the energy, it reminds me of like, you can't, like, don't assist others before putting your own mask on or whatever. Put your own like life force on before assisting others. So I really think that's what that's about, is like, you can't run off no energy. You can't give to others if your cup is empty, right? And it's like such cliche things, but they keep emphasizing that sometimes when we are empty, it's kind of like, well, how do I reclaim my energy? What does that even look like? Like how? I feel so powerless, you know? And so they said, remember the things that bring you joy, as small as it can be. Like the the thing that's going to start charging your energy, the first power cord that you can plug into, is remembering the things that bring you joy. So it can be like a movie that you remember that you love, or walking, playing with animals, like just even the small things that you can honestly say, oh yeah, I remember this brings me joy, right? And they said start there.
Beautiful. I think that's amazing. Yeah, I don't really have much else to add because I think we kind of covered everything. I think it's just really like being willing to ask yourself what's your next move? What's the next right thing? Right? How can you either, if you're good and your cup's full, can you support somebody else that needs help right now? What does that look like? And because again, I guess, okay, last thing is they're reminding of, I've talked about this a lot on my podcast, is how we're creating templates right now. Like these are new templates on earth, energetic templates of ways of supporting community, people, self, and all of this. It's changing. So be willing to explore what that looks like, right? Not having to get it right the first time, but be willing to explore what it can look like.
Mm.
So,
Like that.
yeah. All right. Well, I think we will leave it there for today. I hope you guys all enjoyed Spirit Coffee Talk. Do check out avalonspirit.com for any other insights, courses, all that kind of stuff. And if you enjoyed what you saw here today, please do subscribe and share, and we will be back next week.